So I've got to ask Nico, where did this story come from? Was there, I mean, it has a catfish element to it. I mean, where did this start from?
I mean, I think there's an element of the story. I mean, there's the catfish, but it's also like the feeling of a fish out of water comedy, kind of like, a guy who's against the ropes every minute, which I really enjoy about film. That comes maybe from my experience of actually being abroad all my life. I left Argentina when I was 19 years old and went to live in Barcelona. And then in 2012, I moved to New York. So it's, I've been in the US for like some years now. And it's always been this distance, with like the actual place, which you're not completely belong, but you're kind of like integrated, that kind of like gives you this feeling of fish out of water that I really enjoy in films as well,
What was it like being able to put a fun guy like Sam in that situation? And I mean, I love how you open the film with that holy shit, where am I moment, because it immediately pulled me in, I know, and I think it's a great way to pull the audience in, that not only fish out of water, but fish out of water in a completely different environment you've never been to. Yeah. And then all the action starts. It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, we really wanted to hook the audience just right from the beginning of the film and try to kind of like give you a glimpse of how he's going to have to just adapt and use everything he's, in his, every tool he has to actually, get through the eventual, experiences and adventures that he has in Argentina. So we wanted to start the film right there with him being picked up. It's like, well, you're going to see, when you see the film, you're going to get it for the audiences. But having Sam was a privilege because he brought so much, to the table, so much that I could even imagine. And actually, I wasn't even dreaming to work with an actor like Sam. We were doing an open casting in the beginning, and then my producer Andrew Geller, who's here, he's really suggested it. He said, like, you should work. We should try to aim for, somebody who's seasoned and experienced and has the ability to pull this off, because he will have to lead this into a very, it's like basically taking an actor to a swamp in the middle, at the end of the world, and then shooting an indie film there. It's a challenge. You want a guy who can, be the, lead, put this in his shoulders and lead in a good way. So Sam was amazing doing that. And the fact that he doesn't speak like that good Spanish helped, because he was kind of that situation all along.
I'm going to ask, you talk about that swamp. Can you talk about the location scouting?
Yeah.
And you're like 2-3 hours outside of Buenos Aires.
Yes.
In the middle of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, it's a very, I would say beautiful place. What happens is, like, very briefly, like, it's a river that creates a river delta in the outskirts of Buenos Aires. A river that comes from the Amazon. So it creates this microcosm that looks nothing like the environment that you see in the city. Buenos Aires is a very urban city, has nothing to do with the location. So we, like, even for people we were born in Buenos Aires, El Tigre is a very special and unique place that feels foreign to us as, people from Buenos Aires. So it's a very crazy system, river delta, that creates these islands of mud, really. And so, it's like you go like 2 or 3 hours outside and you find it. And I thought it was the perfect location to put kind of like an urbanite, geeky character, American, like super first world kind of like geeky guy against the ropes, every minute, because it's a place that challenges your addiction to internet. Is that it challenges your connection, because like there's the connection of like cell phone connection is not even that great. So it really forces you to embrace nature and to just change gears and be calm. And it takes a few days to adapt. So I thought this is I've been going to that place for a while. On vacations. I really love that place, and my friends always rent houses there, and I thought this is a great place to make a film. And the house is a house of a friend, so I wrote the movie for that house, and so I had it in my head the way to shoot it, and I thought it was perfect for the story.
Can you talk about social media and sexting and phones? I mean, the beginning plays such a good role of everyone, I think's had that moment. Maybe not the picture moments, but how important the phone is to people these days, and that is really much an element of your film. Can you talk about that and having to have a character just go off kilter of the phone completely, and that's not something people want to do?
I feel like connections through social media and connections through technology have become, even since I started writing the film, it became more relevant, which I'm glad, because you're scared of a movie becoming all very quickly. And I think in the film, Alex needs desperately this connection with Sofia to validate. Is the only person. So Alex is in the middle of this decision he has to make, either selling out what he thinks will be selling out as an artist, or keep trying his thing that hasn't been working. So faced with this decision, everybody around him tells him, like, it's not selling out, it's just a contract, just sign the contract, get a better life, and construct from there. Sofia is the only one who really kind of like validates his escapism, like he's this will that he has to just be an artist and be somewhere else and find kind of authenticity. So in a way, he uses that kind of like internet connection to kind of like escape his reality, and I think that's why he gives so much importance to a connection that otherwise would be kind of like weird. Like, you don't really know this other person online, how as much as we don't know like so many of the people we really connect online with, and I mean, I feel like at some point, the whole internet connection is a metaphor of how, like, we can't really know others, you know, like how as close as you try to understand others and get to know others, you know, that feeling becomes deceiving, because like everybody's changing constantly and everybody's, you know, so maybe social media, it's a way of like kind of like more blatantly see how people are somebody we can't really know or understand, you know. In a way, I think there's a connection there.
Can you talk about the animation and having fun with that? I mean, there's really cool ways of, I mean, you go into like physics and the whole interactions of things. I mean, some really heady stuff, not just funky animation. There's some really smart things that you guys are able to accomplish with the animation.
I mean, the animation, first and foremost, I think it's a kind of like a comfort zone for me, because my background is actually animation, and I've been working with mixed media and animation for a long time. So, and this is like the first time I tackle head-on something of like a live-action feature-length narrative. I did some live-action in the past, work with actors, but this is the first time I have to really pull it off. So to me, was like having those animations were a little bit of a comfort. So this is a little bit of a confession. It's like a little bit of a comfort zone, but at the same time, the animations work at different levels. The thing is, like, Alex is isolated in the island, and he's interacting with these other three people, but he doesn't really know them or can confide in them. So the animations give you a glimpse on what he's thinking in every given moment of the film. And it's like, in a different narrative, you would have the mentor or you would have the buddy to talk to, you know, Alex, and then through their conversations you figured out, okay, where's this guy in this particular moment, right? But in this movie you don't have that. Like, he doesn't have anybody. So the animations is like kind of like a retrospective diary of his mind. It's like, all right, this is where I'm at at this point, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. And regarding the heady stuff, I mean, I love how, like, there's a poetical dimension about science and about philosophy sometimes that with just a couple sentences could, you know, bring you this kind of like otherworldly feeling and ideas to the table, even if you're not trying to make an essay out of that. You know, I try to keep it in a very, light and accessible manner, but still having the movie to be a kind of like a platform to discuss things that could be interesting, or could be things that are relevant for us or for me in this particular moment when I was doing the film. So I thought it was a good way to, you know, platform to do it. So I'm glad that some people enjoy it, because it's like a part of the film that I'm very proud, and makes it, I think, different and makes it special.
Yeah. Where did the tomatoes come from?
I mean, that's my world, right? Like, that is like the dancing tomatoes is the YouTube kind of like animation world that I lived in. And like a lot of me, I mean, and this is me and my friends, like, you would see how many, you know, that my friend would do a film about like a little animation thing, and it would, you know, be viral on YouTube, and everybody would go like, how many plays does it have? You get into this kind of nonsensical, you know, craziness of like unimportant things going viral. And then at some point that haunts you, because like, I mean, I've been in that situation. I mean, fortunately, I had the fortune to have a couple of things that I did in my life that went viral. And then in the end, it haunts you, because like, it's like, is it really what I'm trying to express to the world? Like, when you get away from, like, when you have some distance with the place and with the, you know, likes and all that stuff that, you know, at some point kind of like, you know, helps your ego, you really question yourself. It's like, is this the message I want to give to the world? And I think the movie a little bit has this sense of like, talking about like what is our responsibility as filmmakers, and even as people that sends messages out in a world that is saturated with those messages and really doesn't need another film, right? Like, we don't need, I mean, another film, and yet we are so compelled to do film and to express ourselves, and to me that creates a contradiction. Obviously, I'm still doing the film, and I'm glad I did, and it's like I'm very proud of it. But it is something it runs through the film as a saturated world with images. What is our responsibility? What is it that we bring into the table that matters and makes a difference? It's a question. I don't know if I have the answer.
It's a good question, though. Yeah, I've got to ask, what's it being able to bring the film to a festival that honors screenwriting and honors the whole art form of bringing it, not just here's a film.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the whole process. Is it nice to be able to bring it to AFF and showcase it here?
Man, I'm so humbled about it. I mean, this is a dream come true for us. I mean, not only because it's such an amazing festival that I've been following, and I feel their own story podcast. I'm a fan, and like I always had Austin in my head because it's one of the most vibrant film scenes. And Linklater is from here, and like so many of my heroes, Robert Rodriguez, everybody's related with the scene. So to me, it's like a mecca, and in a way, it's a dream come true to be able, it humbles me to be part of this festival. And so, I'm super proud and happy that we're here with the film. And at a different level, this is my first time writing, a screenplay as well. I mean, a proper feature-length screenplay. So the fact that this is a writers' festival also makes a difference, and it makes it, very, amazing to be here surrounded by so many people. Yeah.
Have you been to any of the panels or met any?
Yeah, I've been in a couple. I mean, we've been working very hard for the film, but I was lucky to see a couple panels, and I was blown away. I seen Queen of Comedies yesterday, and I was like so amazed by those writers, like their careers and like the way they talk about important issues and they use comedy for it. I think is very, very amazing.
So I've got to ask, Argentinian, you moved to Spain.
Yeah,
it's kind of similar to Messi a little bit.
the difference
Y'all
being,
are kind of
I mean, I know nothing about soccer, but like the difference being like the millions and the abilities of Messi, yeah. The fact that it's antisocial, and I love talking. This guy is like it's like a mute.
Yeah, doesn't speak.
But I'm not like that, so as you can see. So
what's it like now? Because you're in New York now.
Yeah, I live in New York.
Yeah,
in Brooklyn.
Can you talk about New York scene and about where's that going to take you as far as your career, and tell us a little bit about what you're working on kind of in the next round.
Sure.
I know you're still pushing this as you should. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
What's in the works too?
So New York is a scene. It's interesting. I mean, I work. I'm a professional commercial director, so I work in New York, and mainly my scene in New York is commercials and advertising, and I'm right now building this other scene. It's like I mean, and the commercials for me is even a thing that like I've been on for the last maybe 8 years. Is my day job. Like it's a work that I do, and I have amazing people around me, and that my scene is that scene like in my everyday. But like I'm starting to build a film scene, because this, in a way, this movie was done in a vacuum. It's not a studio movie. It's not a movie about. I didn't do movies before that, so it's the first time, and that's why I'm so excited to be able to build this community, and I hope to build that in New York as well. I'm doing it. I'm meeting more and more people. Last couple of years, I've been meeting people with the film that are in that world. So it's like we'll see what it brings me. I mean, I'm just open. It's a journey, right?
And I've got to ask, since me and Sam, we talked a lot about traveling and living other places. Since you've done that as well, is there a place you would just love to give a chance to live in? Like, I'd love to go there for 6 months. Is there anything that pops?
Oh man,
in your head?
so many places. I don't know. It's like everywhere, really. I've been in Asia last year for the first time, and I thought this is an amazing place to have to spend a season. Like to write, like this fantasy of like going somewhere else and write. I love LA as well. I love the weather and the people there, and so there's so many places, but it's like, to me, so natural to change place. I mean, I almost feel it as a part of me. In a way, it's hard to feel like you belong somewhere after you left your home so young, and then you've been in so many different places that it becomes kind of like your thing, and not being part of anything, which is scary, and at the same time it's part of like I learned to embrace it as my kind of like identity in a way, and this movie I think reflects that, because it's like it navigates those two worlds between me being Argentine and being in the US, and like being abroad so long. So I think I was able to kind of like put some of that in the film.
What was it like being able to showcase this back home? And what was the reaction back home too? Because you do show, like you said, a place that is kind of heralded for Argentinians because it's so different than Buenos Aires. You show the part of Argentina maybe a lot of people don't get to see.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Argentina, it was crazy because like this happened. I mean, I almost didn't thought about like where am I going to show this film when it's done, like, and when we finished the first like festival that took it was Bafisi, which is a very amazing. I mean, it's a festival that I'm a big fan of, and it's like very strong in the local scene. It's very important in the local scene. Argentines have a very much art house driven film scene in Buenos Aires. I mean, there is a commercial, but the art house film is very strong. They're a tight community. I know some of them, but I've always been an outsider, and so I was a little, concerned that I would be like rejected. But they were so nice, and everybody loved the film, and we had such a warm welcome. And to me, it was full circle, right? Because I left Argentina, and then I went on. I mean, I'm self-taught, so I wasn't planning on being a director. It just happened at some point, and then coming back to Argentina with my first film meant a lot to me, and so we were very, very humble and excited about being in Buenos Aires, and we had great reviews, and people loved it, and so it was the first time, and until you don't put a movie in front of audiences, you don't really know what you have. Like, you maybe deluding yourself, and especially with comedy that is so black and white. Either people laugh or people don't laugh, right? It's not a laugh out loud jokey comedy, but it's meant to make people laugh, and people did. And what is interesting is, like, in different countries, people laugh about different jokes. Argentines loved some jokes, and we showed it in London, and people laughed at different jokes. It was like very interesting to see that happening. Yeah.
Well, you have that perfect mix of Spanish and English throughout, and it melds well. Yeah, and I laughed, so I enjoyed it.
Do you speak Spanish?
A little bit. I caught everything, but the Spanish was quick. You had a lot of fun with that. The confusion of Sam's character, as well as some audience members probably going through the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are some countries where people, if you go to Sweden, people will be like, even in a party, they will speaking among themselves in English if they know you're around. But in in our countries, even if they speak English, they get lazy. Like, they won't speak. I mean, they will speak English out of courtesy, but like at some point they could get lazy. Not because they're bad, but it's like there's not gonna. So it was very important for me to be realistic about the use of Spanish. I didn't want them to be artificially speaking English among themselves. So we tried to introduce like this particular situations where, like, in a way, like, there was a reason why they had started to, and I tried to use a sense of humor. I work with my friend Pablo Sternbach, who consulted the script and helped me enormously on developing it, and a lot of the ideas of the film are his, and we work very carefully to make this believable. And if you show this to an Argentine person, they won't go like, why are Argentine? Like when in a Second World War movies, like the Nazis speak English, and it's like that's so not, like that totally turns me off. So we took good care of like using English and using it as a comedic opportunity, because like in a way what you want is like to put the character in very top, that's comedy, right? Like to put the character in the worst possible scenario, and that, in the kind of like the opposite of his spectrum. So that's what I think, like the character not speaking English was a great tool, actually.
Definitely. Well, Nico, I really appreciate the time. I love the film. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.